Welcome to another edition of the Central Willamette Credit Union's Business Edge podcast, where building better businesses together is our motto here at Central Willamette. My name is Dave Dirks. I'm your host for today's episode, and today's episode is going to be focused on what to do when the word recession is used. And oftentimes in the last couple of years, the big debate among economists and among many business people is a recession going to hit us? Is there a future recession coming? What's the market doing? And my take, if you're a small business owner, my take on this is the best time to prepare for slower economic times, whether you call it recession or whatever else, is to do it before it actually happens. There's an old adage I remember back from my military days. It says, basically, in times of peace, prepare for war. So the time to prepare for a war is not when it actually happens. You got to be prepared way before that. Same thing with economic slowdowns, whether they're national or regional or whatever. They tend to be cyclical, so they come and go. How long they last is unknown because each one has its own characteristics. But your responsibility, if you're in business, is to figure out, okay, if there is a slowdown and I start to see my customers starting to slow down their purchases, maybe the frequency of their purchases what am I going to do? Now, business owners who think about this in advance of any economic slowdown sort of have that edge because they've already thought through, what am I going to do? Like, what is my first thing? Am I going to and of course, the knee-jerk reaction I see a lot of times in businesses is, let's cut prices. But the cutting prices, and there'll be some podcasts in the future we'll deal on pricing. Cutting prices in a recession or an economic slowdown is the race to the bottom, especially if you're in a business that's commoditized, where your business or your goods and services are offered at other locations. Maybe larger competitors also carry them. Don't rely at all on your ability to cut prices as a way to get around an economic slowdown. So a couple of things come to mind. First of all, if you're in a business and it's a fairly young, early stage business, maybe you're in your first 5 years, you've got to look at the way you're financed. Now, listen, I know how this works. A lot of business owners, they start the business sort of on a shoestring. If you're still on a shoestring and an economic turndown happens, you're obviously going to be pressured. You're going to be pressured because you just don't have enough amplification of revenue flow and backup and maybe even some business savings to help make it so that you can get through a recession. So if you need to shore up your finances, you need to talk to your accountant. You need to kind of get a sense of what you can do to make sure that you're prepared for a recession if one ever comes. A couple of things I also noticed over the years, too, is that businesses who survive recessions well or economic slowdowns well are ones that do a couple of things really well. First of all, they sell more of their expertise. Like, for example, I've known restaurateurs who in a slowdown, that's one of the first things that's hit. It's usually consumers cut back on the amount of time that they dine outside the home, and they'll prepare more meals internally. Well, I knew of a restaurateur that actually countered that by offering cooking classes in his restaurant. Well, that changed everything. He actually developed a viable revenue stream because while people might not have been willing to go to his restaurant, people were willing to have him share his cooking secrets and kind of his, share some of his expertise as a chef for foods that they would prepare for themselves. So he found a unique way to kind of do that. I knew one time I had a friend of mine that was doing auto repair, had a fairly robust auto repair business. But, what happens when recession comes, people slow down. They're like, I'll wait to get this fixed on my car. But one thing he did is he sold more of his expertise by actually providing, again, classes. I thought this was great. Classes to teach people basics of how to maintain their car at a lower cost than in doing some basic things that actually prevent them from having to go to him all the time. So finding other ways to sell your expertise is one thing you can do to make sure that you find additional places to find revenue. Another thing to look at is how can you solve more customer problems? Because if you're whatever business you're in, the question you should be asking yourself and probably your customers is, what else can I be doing for you that would add value to what you're doing? How can I find more revenue streams by providing additional services or additional products that solve problems we're not solving right now? And then, of course, at the end of the day, again, the best thing you can do to do well through a recession is to plan for it now and have that in the back of your, like that card in your pocket. And when it happens and you start to see that happening, if it does happen, I'm not an economist, so I can't predict, you're prepared. Prepare now. Anyway, this is Dave Dirks from Central Willamette Credit Union. We appreciate you listening. Hopefully you got something out of this podcast. If you'd like more information about us, go to our website, www.centralwcu.org. Thank you and have a great day.
The information provided here is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any financial decisions.